The following program contains opinions, observations, and a few jokes that take direct aim at the ideology of white supremacy. On this podcast, we attack ideas, not individuals. If anything said on this show makes you feel an overwhelming urge to physically confront white evangelicals, Trump voters, or anyone else, please note that would be a personal life choice, not legal advice, not encouragement, and definitely not covered under our weak-ass insurance plan. Enjoy the show.
Yo, welcome to another episode of the N-Word Podcast.
Yo.
The podcast where we gladly, happily talk about how we tear down white supremacy. On this lovely episode, I am very excited to introduce, of course, Angela Peoples.
What's up?
But also our very special guest, Gregory Cendana. President of Can't Stop Won't Stop Consulting.
Yes.
Cultural political strategist, creative dancer, activist organizer,
Extraordinaire. Yeah.
Received.
Very happy to have you here, Greg.
Friend, homie, comrade,
Friend,
starshine.
homie, comrade. I feel like this was a long time coming.
All of them.
Yeah, this is definitely an episode that was like, okay, obviously we're gonna have Greg. It's just a matter of when.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Word, welcome.
Welcome. Happy to have you here.
How you doing?
How am I doing?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
What a way to start.
Let's talk about it. How
Good
are you
intro.
doing?
You know, it's interesting given the moment, but I will say that I feel grounded.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think there is a lot of chaos. There are a lot of things that surround us that I think are by design trying to distract us.
Yeah.
But through it all, and especially these last couple of months, I can say that if there's anything that I feel is grounded, and I don't know if I would always been able to say that.
Yeah.
And I'm both honored, but also very clear that is my orientation, not just like in the world, but also day to day, and like how I try to approach like each decision and action I take.
Word.
I resonate with feeling grounded. I've been thinking about that because we talk, when we start the podcast every time that we're filming, it's like, how am I doing? I mean, chaos abounds. Actually, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And also, I do feel grounded, and I think that as you were talking, it just made me think like that in and of itself is a disruption and is a revolution to be choosing there's multiple versions of ourselves at different, like living many different realities at the same time, I believe. But like to choose to focus on the version of yourself that is grounded and like let that be true and let that be real.
Yeah.
There are many other truths of which we can give space for as well. But like, yeah, actually, no, I'm going to, in this moment where y'all are trying to tear it up, trying to tear me up, trying to tear us up, I'm also really grounded and clear. So yeah, I resonate a lot with that.
In preparation for this conversation, you had mentioned a group of people, and help me with the pronunciation again. Aetas?
The Aetas.
Aetas. And I'm very excited to talk about this.
Okay, let's do it.
Especially because they are, I feel like Black, indigenous, Filipino people who essentially embody resistance. I truly, like this was my first time ever even discovering this.
Yeah.
Basically indigenous Black Filipino people. So I would love to hear from you.
So I will first say that I think a big part of the work that I do and why I feel like, and part of my purpose is to be a solidarity builder, to understand how communities are connected, how communities have experienced white supremacy, these other systems of domination that have socialized or convinced them that interdependence and collectivity is not the right way. And I feel like a big part of my own process has been to unlearn that for myself, and then to help other people do that. Because I actually believe that interdependence and collectivity is the answer to not only us surviving, but to us thriving. So I'll just ground and start by saying that.
Yeah.
An important part for me, especially as someone who comes from a Filipino background, community, culture, and did a lot of organizing with Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, it was not lost on me the amount of anti-Blackness
For sure.
that showed up in our communities, my communities. And so it was important to, one, for me to understand the history of that, both in a U.S. context, but in a worldwide, global context, but also to find ways to share that history. Because I think that, as there's a Filipino quote that they say, no history, no self, K-N-O-W, but also N-O history, N-O self. From Jose Rizal is his name. And so that grounds me, and it's been important, and also why I connect that back to now the attacks on and the ways in which they're trying to change the curriculum in schools, or the ways that we learn about history. Because once people understand our history, to your earlier point, connecting this to Black August, is there's a desire to resist.
Oh, for sure.
There's a desire to understand that we are a project of white supremacy and colonialism, and that the more questions and the more curiosity there is, the more interest there is in dismantling this system.
Right, exactly.
Right? So I just want to start.
It's
by
like a thirst.
Well, it's a thirst, but also it normalizes. It's literally, it's what we do.
Yeah.
We do resist. We especially in the U.S., but globally, the thing that when the country moves forward, it's because different people have come together through resistance to move it forward. It's actually even everybody who celebrates, the Revolutionary War and in the so-called U.S. independence, even that is a project of resistance. It's literally what. It's water, wet, resist. That's what we do.
So I start by saying that because I feel like even me learning about the Aetas, which are an indigenous tribe and community, indigenous peoples from the Philippines, who, if you look at their pictures, their proximity to Blackness is way closer than to proximity to whiteness.
For sure.
But grounded in that, and knowing that the Philippines was colonized by not only Spain, but also the United States, and as well as Japan. And if you think about the people from those particular places, their proximity is closer to whiteness.
Right.
Yeah.
And so even through the hundreds and hundreds of years of the colonization, and as the identities and the skin color of Filipinos has moved, lighter and lighter. It's just important just to ground that, actually, there is literally indigenous Filipinos who are Black.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And low key, some of them were looked darker than me.
Oh yeah.
I as soon as you texted this, I was like, I wonder what this is about. And I immediately typed it into YouTube. And basically there's a couple of Black YouTubers who essentially try to find Black indigenous people in other countries and stuff like that.
That's cool.
And it was whoa, I feel like I just entered a whole nother side of YouTube that I didn't even know existed, but this makes sense that it does exist. And then two, it was interesting to see how welcoming the ITIS people were to these YouTubers. and how they were like literally like, oh, black. Like there was a word that they were using that was basically like, oh shit, it's like niggas. And it was just cool, and it was definitely like one of these moments where I'm reminded that blackness is everywhere, and there's a reason why this history is kept secret and silenced. There's a reason why, like, you know, I don't know this, or, you know, this isn't like discussed daily. It also reminds me of, you know, this conversation I was having with my mom where she sent me this video. I don't know where, I think it was on Facebook or something, but basically the video was about, I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, but Seneca Valley, or Seneca, basically where New York Central Park is now, there was a whole ass black like town, city that existed. And that like they basically destroyed all of that to make what is now Central Park. And my mom like just had this like, yo, like she had this like very like what seemed to be like an overwhelming experience of like, I never knew this was a thing. Like she's sending it to me like her son on some like, do you know about like,
aren't you the justice
like,
one?
Did you know about this? And I was telling her, I'm like, yeah, I definitely ran up on this history. And I'm just like, how does this make you feel? And like, she just like, it's just really interesting. I never knew that this was a thing. And then I was like, well, while you're here, let me tell you about the Oklahoma, the Tulsa race riots and bombings and all that shit. Because, you know, black people had our own shit. And guess what the theme is? White folks coming here to take our shit away.
I think so, maybe two things. One is like, I've been thinking a lot recently about how if we think about, as people who are in the United States, I'll speak for myself as a Black American, like or what they call foundational blacks, I just think it's such a weird, like, okay, like foundational Black American.
Okay, wait, say more about this. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if
all right. So this is a tangent, but we'll go there.
Okay.
So if you're familiar with like the ADOS movement,
I've heard about it. But,
African descendants of slaves, something like that. It's basically a movement, we'll call it, of Black people in America who are like Black people who are the real Black Americans, foundational Blacks are Black people. Or foundational Black Americans are Black people whose ancestors are descendants of slavery. Okay. Not immigrants. Not like, you know, not like, which is so stupid because it's like, well, anyways, it's like not like a Haitian American or a Nigerian American.
What's their goal though?
I believe the conversation is mostly in around reparations and repair. Okay. But then it's also, I think that there's some anti-immigrant sentiment in there. So it's like you could see a foundational Black be aligned with Make America Great Again, because they're like, yeah, get these foreign Blacks up out of here. We don't like the immigrants either, but it's really very steeped in anti-Black or white supremacy, because it's like, I don't know why, as a foundational Black or otherwise, that you would think that white supremacy or the people who are doing things to maintain power for whiteness would be anywhere close to aligned with you and your Black ass. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. No. So I forget how I started talking about the foundational Blacks. Oh, as a foundation. So I would be considered a foundational Black because my parents, my ancestors are, as far as we know, can track, like my parents didn't immigrate here. My parents' and their grandparents and so on and so forth were descendants of slaves, enslaved people. And so as a foundational Black.
Thank you for that. That was helpful.
I thought this was more. So this is where like the diaspora war kind of thing comes in. If you're on the internet in any of
I
these
see
times
it.
of days.
Yeah.
Where some corners of black internet where there's like beef about
There's definitely beef
who
for
deserves
tension.
to have space in the United States, who like there's a lot of conversation about like black Americans not having culture, but then like there's
And,
also
like,
conversation about like black American culture is actually the culture that's been hip hop culture has been,
Yeah.
exported all over the world. That's actually now everybody else's culture that they're claiming. The point that I'm trying to make is, as a foundational black, I am familiar with stories like the Tulsa, Oklahoma, the burning of Black Wall Street and the
Yeah.
way that that there were black towns
Yeah.
and thriving black towns that white people destroyed. But also that my perspective is not to look at the United States as a colonial entity. Like colonization in the same way that you were talking about, like the Philippines has been colonized by Spain, has been colonized by the U.S. As a black American, I don't think of, it's not in my, or so
That these are
previously,
some colonizers.
that America is a
Yeah.
colonizer.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a way that we were taught to think. Like, taught to think that there was slavery and they oppressed other people, but like, for me, the process of like Hawaii becoming Hawaii is like not colonization. Actually, it's like we're expanding the union. We're like bringing people into this country versus like you all to hear the United States, to hear America as a colonizer of Guam or the Philippines or any of these or Puerto Rico, right? It's like that I think is an important part for black American people to start to like
Process.
dissect and like think about it, and maybe
Sit
not
with
just
this.
black American people, but like people who are raised in the United States that are a people of color. It's like this is a colonial entity in the same way that we're thinking about how the British or the Dutch colonized different parts of the Caribbean or even parts of Louisiana or where we know now is like parts of this, what is the United States now in the South. Like this whole thing is a colonizer, and it's not framing that's dominant or top of mind if you're raised in the United States, I don't think, but it is really helpful, one, to actually see what this whole project is about.
Yeah.
And two, to then see how all of this distinctions that people try to make between the lighter skin version of a Dominican or a lighter skinned Filipino or whatever. It's like you're only lighter skinned because of colonization.
Period.
Yeah.
You're only
Yeah.
lighter skinned because of the rapes and the sexual assaults that happen through colonization. And so all of it is that to me is has been, and I think for many others could be a helpful like opener or like shifter towards like, let's think about this in a different way,
Yeah, and the only reason why colorism is a thing
Exactly.
is because its proximity to the colonizers, to whiteness, and it's like this is only a discussion because the colonizers done taught you some shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now you're trying to fight to be as closely associated to them, like them.
The colonizers taught you that you were better than your neighbor because you looked more like the colonizers.
Right.
That's the better thing. But actually, y'all are more closely aligned in your experiences, whether or not it's around your skin color, than you are with the colonizer.
And the flip side of it all is that at the end of the day, it's still the same enemy.
Yes.
Which is the colonizer.
Yes.
Which is often whiteness.
Yep.
And I appreciate this conversation because it also reminds me of our collaboration with each other.
Yes.
With Can't Stop, Won't Stop and the South. Before we dive into that conversation, would definitely love to hear more about Can't Stop, Won't Stop. And why Can't Stop, Won't Stop? What is it? Why did you start it?
I love telling people the name when I talk about Can't Stop, Won't Stop. I love to say it. They're like, okay.
Well, first I'll say that Can't Stop, Won't Stop Consulting was founded in 2009.
Nice.
Gregory.
Yes.
That's bananas.
Yes, by myself and also our fellow comrade Carmen
Nice.
Berkeley Anderson.
Shout out Carmi.
Hey, what's
Shout
up,
out,
Carm? And honestly,
Wow.
I will say that it's been on a journey. But when we co-founded it, the idea, the impetus was there are people who look like us, who shared our experience and identities, that deserve to be in leadership and decision-making positions, and we wanted to create the pipelines to get them there and give them the networks of support and care to succeed once they do.
Word.
I think that was the initial idea, and obviously that looked different and iterated throughout. And now we say, you know, as a firm, we empower leaders, we strengthen organizations, and shape culture to advance justice, liberation, and freedom for all people.
It's beautiful.
Love it.
So that's and I think, and especially as I think about the moment and even my role in the firm, as I've been on this journey, that the biggest thing that I could do is be in better relationship with myself.
For sure.
Amen.
Because once I'm in better relationship with myself,
Yeah.
then I can be in better relationship with other people, and organizations and institutions in these systems consist of lots of people.
Yeah.
And so if I can understand in my sphere of influence and my sphere of control, it's about really how am I in better relationship with myself? How am I better regulated? How do I have more awareness? How am I more grounded and clear? That it allows me to show up differently, and also allows me to operate and do the work that I do in a different way. And so that is a key part of like how I try to show up as a leader and facilitator and consultant and as a dancer and as a human. And I'm very conscious of that, because I think I believe, or at least I try to say I show up who I am no matter where you see me, whether in the streets, on a Zoom, in a retreat, in a conference, the grocery store, at the club, like
Word.
that you get the full and the whole, and the whole me, the whole Greg, and and to answer your question about why can't stop, won't stop. You know, I used to be I grew up in a union family, and got politicized both with the organization, the United States Student Association, which is shout out. That's how Angela and I met. But also did organizing with unions, and I, long story short, ended up organizing with the union that at one point represented my dad.
And you were the youngest, right?
Yes.
Leader of Apollo?
Yes, I was the youngest and first openly gay executive director of the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance.
Love that.
How I grounded myself was, how do I make sure that people like my dad, working people, can actually feel like welcomed in an institution, their union, in an institution that was yielding and contending for power.
Yeah.
And so Can't Stop, Won't Stop was a slogan that was about not just about grind culture and hustle culture per se, but can't stop, won't stop dreaming of better futures.
Yeah.
Can't stop, won't stop fighting for better futures. Can't stop, won't stop building solidarity. Can't stop, won't stop doing the work. And that work is about us as individuals, but also how we're doing that in community and collectively.
Working at Apollo, can you say the acronym? The full acronym?
It's Apollo, APALA, and it stands for Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance.
Which is where I met you through the AFL-CIO.
Yes. Now say that acronym.
The American Federation of Labor Congress of Industrial Organizations.
Okay.
He's good at it.
I definitely, because one thing about us, children of immigrants, we definitely don't like to embarrass our people. So what was on top
You better know what these letters mean.
Oh my goodness, top of mind was that was the first thing. I was like, look, you about to move to DC. You about to be working right next to the White House. Last thing you need to be doing is not knowing what the fuck this acronym means. You can miss all the other ones. All the other ones that don't associate with the ones that you're working with, you can miss those, but you better know the AFL-CIO. Like, what?
Come on now.
So yeah, I definitely had to lock that in.
I want to say about Can't Stop, Won't Stop that your Can't Stop, Won't. I mean, you've always been like a trailblazer to me in like so many for the entire life that I've known you and what I know about you before your life before we knew each other is that you've been a trailblazer and that you starting Can't Stop, Won't Stop. Even when you went to work for Apollo, I was like, okay, that's huge. I mean, we were already like leading organization. I was like, okay, like he's running a whole labor union. That's crazy. And then going to work with Can't Stop, Won't Stop and like really building it like full time. I was like, wow, like Greg really is building something that is grounded in what's absolutely needed, what we absolutely have at our disposal, but it's also like aspirational and dreamy. And, you know, the 2009 thing is really blowing me because we are not that far from 20 years, Gregory. Whoa. 20 years of building a company like this to be so transformative. And, you know, I also just want to name that I appreciate being able to witness the way that you allow yourself and the organization to grow. I can say that I can see when you say like being in better relationship with yourself is the way that you are like doing that is one of the ways that you're doing the work basically. And I can see that work. I can see it in you and I can see it in Can't Stop, Won't Stop. So that's really incredible and inspiring, you know, on your Mel Robbins shit.
Definitely on your Mel Robbins shit. And I love I think what's also key in a part of your work, it feels like from my perspective, is also it's genuine. I feel I met you 2014, 2015, and I feel like probably less than a couple of weeks later, maybe a month later, you came to me with like a project that somebody else was doing, and you just like immediately connected me to it, and I'm just like, what world am I living in right now? Because like I felt like my approach to AFL was like, these people want me for who I am, and fuck it, I'm gonna be who the fuck I am. And I've been following this formula for a couple years now at that point, and it was like, life is pretty fucking good. And you know, to meet you amidst that journey, and then also it evolves into what it is now. To me, it has been, you know, ingredients that center around like genuine energy, thoughtful energy, intentional energy, this excitement to grow and evolve. And I feel like that has always been a part of the like tribe with like you, Carmen, Angela, and like just it's lit.
We did good.
It's mad lit.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, and I'll just say explicitly, I think one of the proudest things about it for me has been that at the core, we've centered our people.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, I think about the times that I would go around DC representing the U.S. Student Association and these coalitions, and would be the only young person, would be the only person of color, would sometimes be one of the few LGBT people, and then we talked about living at the intersection.
Right.
Like,
Word.
then I was like, check, Greg, check, and I was like, there's something wrong with this. That I'm in all these spaces where it's like a whole bunch of older white people.
Yeah.
And then you're like lifting me up, and I'm like, well, what about
Where's everybody
what
else?
about my homies?
Yeah.
Right.
What about these other people that I can't speak for all these communities? Like, why are you asking me about communities and things that I'm like I should not be speaking on? And so I think that's the thing I'm most proud of is like our staff, our network, which includes Angela, our board, all of the people that we partner with are all our people. Like all are the communities that we come from. And, you know, every time people are like, well, we can never find anyone who is experienced or never find anyone who has these skill sets, we prove them wrong with building
Every
this
time.
firm.
For sure.
And saying, actually, no, not only have we found them, but we're all working together, lifting each other up, lifting up each other's projects, lifting up each other as people.
Yeah.
holding space for one another,
and seeing the power of our differences, of not needing it to just be API, not needing to just be queer, LGBT, not needing to just be black, not needing to just be immigrant. It's actually like it is the intersections. The intersection is the power of it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that because I feel like that's been the thing that I've held so that I could remember, that grounded the founding of it, but that continues, and that we could be an example. And to your point, Kevin, like just an inspiration to others to be like, look, you can do this too. Like actually, there is too many things happening in the world.
We need more.
We need more.
Yeah.
And if we can inspire you, and if we can inspire more businesses, more people to be able to live out their dreams and to do the things that make them happy, then we've won.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that just makes me think about why I was so excited to do this project with Malcolm and Yuri. I feel like there was, I'll speak for myself, that the timing of their birthdays, the fact that Malcolm and Yuri have the same birthday, and when we were talking about when we could do this, we were like, oh, maybe we can do it on the 19th. Oh shit, that's their birthday.
Yeah.
But then I didn't know the like depths of their relationships. I know, we're gonna get into it, but it just feels like I even feel them in this room, in this conversation.
Yeah.
Like the wisdom that they had to say, like, especially Yuri was like, I see you, Malcolm.
Yeah.
I want to be in connection with you. Yeah. I want to connect you, your community and your work to my community because I see it's more powerful. And I'm just going to do that through friendship.
Yeah. And like, even when she knew of Malcolm but had not actually met Malcolm, there's like a couple of interviews of her like talking about this moment in several different settings, but she talks about it, and you can tell that she's very aware that she's like, oh, I'm not black, so like let me be very intentional with how I approach this man who just walked into this courthouse, and this courthouse is the case was, I want to say it was like a housing fight or some folks had got arrested for a housing fight, so they were at the hearing for that, and Malcolm X walked in, so like all these like young black kids are like, glossy eyed, all like eyes wide open, like, oh my gosh, it's Malcolm X. And like she kind of had this similar reaction.
She's like, same.
But was also like, yo, let me like chill, let me like be very intentional with like I'm not black, let me let these folks have their moment, but also how do I get over there? Because I need to like, introduce myself and meet this man. And I just appreciate, well, one, just to be clear.
Yeah, sorry, I just dove us into you.
All good.
I was just excited.
Just to be clear, the South and Can't Stop Won't Stop did a collaboration earlier this year where we uplifted the friendship relationship of Malcolm X and Yuri Kochiyama. We did it because it was a great representation of Black and Asian solidarity. And I also want to name one thing that really stood out for me through just our reasoning behind doing it, and then also just diving into the research and what I felt from like Malcolm X and Yuri Kochiyama, is just this simplicity and the clarity of knowing that like we both have the same enemy. Like the motherfucker that is harming my people, that has harmed my people, the motherfucker that harms your people, that has harmed your people, continue to harm your people, continue to harm our people, it's the same person.
Absolutely.
So instead of us fighting back and forth with each other about space and, who's first and da-da-da-da-da, it's like, nah, it's solidarity.
Yeah.
And that was one thing that I really appreciate just coming out of that research, and also knowing my own Black liberation journey, and being very clear that like I don't have to fight for shit except liberation and aim it towards this target who is the enemy. Like, and either you're a part of that train and you're a part of that fight, or you're not. I don't got no time to be bickering and pushing and elbowing for rebounds and shit like that. Nah, the enemy's right there. Let's attack it. So that was definitely, one of the reasons why I really appreciated being able to tell their story around their relationship and their solidarity, and also like just the clarity of my own. But very interested in your thoughts around the collaboration.
Yeah.
What was your experience of it all? And yeah, we can start there.
Definitely. So first I will say, I think even what predicated the partnership and collaboration around the Yuri and Malcolm set was the bomber jackets that the South did for us and our staff and network members. And I want to start with that because I think that because we'd always obviously been in community. We knew that when y'all founded and launched the South, and we'd always been like, all right, we gonna collab, we gonna partner, and we and even when I had the initial conversation with you, Kevin, we were like, this has been a long time coming. And life be lifing.
For sure.
But I truly believe in divine timing and intervention,
100%.
and that we were meant to collaborate at the time we were meant to collaborate in the ways that we were collaborating.
Agreed.
And so it was a beautiful thing because it was a process to kind of think about, okay, so what's the jacket, what's the design? And it was, for context for folks tuning in, we had wanted to, the Can't Stop, Won't Stop Consulting likes to provide swag or things for our staff and network members. And so we were inspired by some of the things that y'all had done, and I was like, "Yo, what if we do a bomber jacket for the team?"
I love that.
And so they were like, "Okay." Everyone got excited, and I was like, "Let me talk to Kevin. Let's see. Let's feel it out. Let's see if this is. Let's feel it out. Let's see if this is something they're interested in." And when we started talking about it, and then we engaged the other folks on the team and started sharing the ideas of like even the elements of the jacket, the design of like the rainbow and the people and the sun, the Filipino sun, and it was the process. Like, I think folks only saw the jackets, and literally every time we wear it, people are like, "Where did we get one of those?" And I'm like, "This is an exclusive." Sorry. But the process itself, I think, was so inspirational in the way that we were able to think about our creative process, that I think it was a nice bridge and a nice segue to this collaboration, the Yuri and Malcolm collaboration. And so I think for me, that's something that I was taking. I was like, wow, like, the creative process, the way in which we understood, even because I think obviously we had personal relationships, but I think that there were things about each other's practices, the way that we operated in the context of our businesses, that I think were maybe still newer to each other,
For sure,
And so I think even in that regard, it was I appreciated being able to have a chance to understand more about what was, especially you, Kevin, like your thought process for this out, your creative process, like how you then would take some of these things and then what you did to kind of like feel inspired. And that for me, I guess for me, the relationship and the trust, like I think was not only there, but I think it emulated through the thing that we were collaborating on. And so as I think about the Yuri and Malcolm collaboration, I think I was like, wait, this is also about relationship and trust. This is about a relationship and trust that Yuri and Malcolm had for each other. This collaboration is about the relationship and trust that Can't Stop, Won't Stop Consulting and the South have with one another, and the people that make up these firms and businesses. And so for me, it was both a perfect like analogy, but also like a beautiful way to tell the story of this history of Yuri and Malcolm, but the history of us.
Yeah. It's really beautiful what you're saying, Greg, because I think there's such a in some ways, it can be possible to think about the relationships as not as transactional, but in service of transactions, right? Like in the Yuri and Malcolm example, it's like, oh, well, Yuri needed to fight for, reparations around internment, and Malcolm was fighting for I don't know the exact campaign that he was working on when they connected, but like
Black liberation type stuff.
Right. But like it could be, you could think about it as simply the relationship is in service of our campaign goals or our business goals. But like actually the relationship is not just a tool or a means to an end. It is an end in of itself. It is the connection is where the power comes from. It's where the creativity flows from. It is where, back to what I was saying earlier of like, it's using and generating energy toward the like liberatory aspects of life that we're all trying to get to. Yeah. Right. So the relationships, yes, this partnership, we created some apparel, we're selling business transaction, right? But also the relationship, the transaction of the creative energy that is expressed, the transaction of like having coworker relationships that turn into friendships, that turn into family, that are then also expressed back out into other type of partnerships and collaborations. And I think that like as all of us are in this world where many things are dying and many things are needing to be born at the same time, that like, we do get to think about relationship and collaboration and partnership as much more than just transactions for in service of capitalism or transactions in service of white supremacy's goals, whatever they may be. They're actually, we can do business, we can do relationship, we can do partnership, we can do comradeship. That's not the word, but like we can do that in service of our liberation goals. And that's actually even more powerful, I think, than using it just for the capitalists of it all.
Yeah, which is, it's
or just for that.
Peeling back the curtains, it's like it's less about the capitalism and a lot more of like, we're doing all of this work in service of storytelling and in service of, inspiring the resistance. We're doing this at like, this is our shit, this is our life. Yeah, like it's like everybody gets caught up in like my purpose. Am I living my purpose? For me right now, this iteration of my life, I'm like, my purpose is to tell these stories about resistance, about fighting white supremacy, and send that through a vehicle of creativity that allows me to now output it in many different ways, whether it's a hat, whether it's apparel, like this now then becomes a vehicle to be able to be like, yo, when Malcolm X got assassinated, the motherfucker that was holding him while he was dying was Yuri Kochiyama. Yes. Like something that can easily just pull so many people into this conversation, and now it's like
this Japanese American woman who like, is newer in relationship with him, but is just like, I see you. And imagine the ancestral work that Yuri's ancestors and Malcolm's ancestors were doing in that moment to like bring Yuri to be the one to hold Malcolm as he's, like, and like, I'm getting, that's chills.
And it all falls in alignment with our experience in the process and how we got to, literally randomly throwing out a date and was just like, we should do the launch here. And it's like, wait a second, this is Malcolm's birthday. Oh, wait a second, this is Yuri Kochiyama's birthday.
They're the same exact birthday.
Literally, so like it is all in alignment and in service to a much greater and bigger thing. Even to the point where it's like, this is bigger than us. We're just like in service of this.
One thing that I want to say, because I think, especially just to make the explicit point around white supremacy, is that I think I appreciate the collaboration and also the relationship and if we think about the political context that they were in, and why I think actually to kind of connect it back to this idea that the reminder that the U.S. is a colonizer and that white supremacy is a system that they've intentionally tried to leverage, is that there is the ongoing the anti-blackness and anti-black racism, especially within Asian communities, was also intentional. That they actually used Asians as the wedge, as they saw black folks in the civil rights movement coming together, organizing, building power. White supremacy was like, yo, this is gonna really change the dynamics.
This could be bad.
Yeah.
The dynamics of our power.
Yeah.
And so what they actually did during that time was they actually passed a bunch of immigration laws that basically created incentives for mostly highly educated Asians to basically move to the United States, and then leverage the media to then say, look at all these smart Asians.
Yeah.
And look, they can pull themselves up out these bootstraps. So all these things that these black people are saying that they are having to do,
that's not a problem.
That's not real.
That's their fault. That's not us.
Right.
And mind you, those immigration laws were only able to be passed because the civil rights laws created so much space for non-white people to get access to voting rights and citizenship and all of that other stuff.
And so I want to just make that connection, because I think even as we bridge it back to why it's so important to understand even the history of the Philippines, and that the indigenous people were literally black and the darkest of browns, to now this moment where we lift up the stories and the solidarity of Yuri Kochiyama and Malcolm X, that like the political context actually and white supremacy actually tried to intentionally pit us against each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's both a reminder of the importance of, at least for me, doing work to organize, to educate, to have grace and help Filipinos and other Asians understand, like, yo, white supremacy is actually the one that is trying to divide us.
Totally.
And to y'all's earlier points of like, actually, it's important. It's important that we not only build solidarity, but like we are, it's the same enemy. And so I want to just bring it back to that, because I think that has been so grounding for me of like, all right, this is my work. This is part of what I need to do, is like have these tough conversations. I have to call out the anti-blackness and anti-black racism that has been internalized and shows up in my family members, people in my community. And I used to be shy about that I had to have those kinds of conversations. But then I was like, no, but when we think about literally the ways in which white supremacy has leveraged these systems against us, it's literally, this is why it's so pervasive, and why it's so that much more important to lift up the models of solidarity, to lift up the Yuris and the Malcolms and the Can't Stop, Won't Stops in the South, because that is an intervention point and a way for us to reframe that actually, like, nah, we actually should not be hating on each other. We should actually be loving on each other, and that let's redirect. Actually, it's white supremacy that's the enemy.
And the energy of loving on each other and supporting each other is actually the thing that generates the power that we need.
Right.
Not like it's just so, I feel like, because there's a lot of like energy around of like, you should like collaborate, work with this person, work with that person. And yes, we want to collaborate to reach broader audiences and all that other stuff. And also, this is the sauce that sustains us. It's the powerful shit. It's the ancestral shit. It's the thing that, as I was saying earlier, like, has been one of the defining factors of, if not the entire human species, certainly those of us that have been in the so-called United States. Like, it's a form, it's the rule, not the exception. That people in the United States, it is the rule that people of different backgrounds come together to fight oppressive systems to make things better for more people. That's actually the norm. That's what we do. It may seem like it's a aberration or only sometimes that happens, but if you look throughout the totality of history in the United States, and quotations, because what is the United States? But like, in the history of it all, like, we do come together. That is literally what we do. And so I think that there's just something, this conversation is really stirring up for me, is like, we talk about our partnerships, we talk about our collaborations, and they really are a a part of the DNA. It's the like, I wish I knew more about DNA because then I could really take this analogy home.
You're like,
I'll really be in it. But it's like the thing that bonds so much of what is here.
Yeah.
I don't know all the science.
The DNA science it got me hype.
You were ready for me to hit
I was
it.
like, is hemoglobin a word? I'm like, what are some vocab words I know?
What are those words? Right?
Yeah.
Hemoglobin is definitely blood, but I feel you. I appreciate where we were headed.
But this conversation is also making me think about the fact that white supremacy needs, as part of the tentacles of white supremacy and how it impacts us, white supremacy feeds off of colorism in a way that it's like, white supremacy feeds off of colorism in a way that's like, oh, you actually can't see your own safety without this ingredient in the framework.
Yes.
Like, in order for white supremacy to feel safe, it needs colorism.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it needs to be able to be like, oh, you're not white, so like, I'm now identifying that I'm potentially vulnerable here. And from that place, it tells so many stories. It keeps us away from so many stories. Yeah. In doing the research around basically World War II and the impact that had on Japanese communities and families in America, and the internment camps, and just like sitting with that moment in time, there's so many white supremacy mindfucks that they used, so many white supremacy tactics and strategies that they used to just create propaganda, amplify their own fears, and really punish humans, punish American citizens, punish Japanese folks. Like, they literally rounded up everybody on some, like, if you're even kind of Japanese and brown, we're roping you up.
We maybe think. Sound familiar?
Literally.
Right.
And like, a lot of the familiar parts of that moment to like what's happening now is just this idea of like, oh, as long as white supremacy has triggered and hit the alarm, that's hilarious.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
That was it's the alignment, y'all. It's the alignment. I see you, Yuri. I see you, Malk.
We see you, Apple.
When
They're listening too.
They're like, oh, what? Okay, you got 5 minutes, nigga. Once white supremacy triggers that alarm, it's just like, I don't give a fuck. I'm using all types of colorism tactics to just,
it doesn't matter what it is,
rope y'all up and throw y'all wherever I need to throw you. Because as part of that history of the Japanese internment camps that happened for, I believe, like 3 years, maybe 4, there were American citizens that were also getting snatched up and put into the camps. Like, so it really didn't matter where you sat. And it reminds me of this moment where, like, you have some black folks on our side, maybe some of these
foundational
blacks who were like, oh, this immigration ICE stuff, this ain't my problem. Until
you're getting scooped up too.
They hit that alarm, and you're now getting roped up because you're either in proximity or you just dark enough, or I feel like you got some XYZ in you, so I'm gonna just throw you in ICE detention centers. It's pretty wild, and to me, to be able to sit with that history and to see that history, it really does ground me in the like enemy aspect of like, oh, so y'all have been doing this.
Yeah.
And like, this is coming from a person, me, who like is like, damn, there's so much more reading that I need to do and that I know that I could be doing. And like, to be able to sit with just the history that I have thus far, I'm like, well, what else am I going to read out there? And what else is going to open up my eyes to see like, oh wow, white supremacy is really the enemy of all of this shit, really.
And been using the same playbook. I mean, the way that you just articulated the very brief history around the internment of, or the detention of Japanese immigrants during the World War II is like, I mean, copy fucking paste, bro.
Literally.
Like, it's exactly the same shit. But the difference is like, there actually isn't a real threat except to white supremacy.
Yeah.
And like, I think in like World War II, there was I mean, you know, white supremacy can make up war a threat anywhere that they want to. And so in theory, they are saying that their rationale right now for detaining and deporting anybody that looks brown mostly, but other people too, is that, you know, there's we're being invaded at the southern border,
right?
Which is not actually happening,
right?
But the same type of like we're being invaded language could and was used in the lead ups to the World War II, right? Like the information spread was different back then because they didn't have social media,
but they still used propaganda,
that same propaganda.
Yeah. To literally be like, you know, I was listening to a video that was talking about that moment around basically it was victims of the Japanese internment camps. So like basically it's like interviews of these people who are seemingly in their like 70s, 80s, late 80s, and they're talking about their experience at the Japanese internment camps when they were like 9 or 13 or 10, and they were talking about the like levels of propaganda, because they were like, at that time they didn't actually see it as like, oh, this racist ass shit is happening right to us. They didn't actually see it as, oh, this American propaganda, white supremacy, fear shit is happening to us. They were actually getting, some of the children were getting propaganda specifically fed to them, specifically segmented to them from this aspect of, let's not strike fear in these kids' minds and hearts. However, let's still feed them this propaganda. So it's like, oh, well, this can't be that bad. Look, you're getting to go on a train to go to this place. Oh, this can't be that bad. You're near this body of water or whatever. Like, you've never seen this type of area before. And it's just it goes back to the propaganda and the mindfuck. It also just goes back to like the evil of white supremacy. The like very manipulative nature and energy that runs through its ideology, runs through its strategy, and like how it's doing the same shit with like Alligator Alcatraz and like giving it this nickname that
makes it sound like
it's a fucking amusement park,
right?
When it's literally a detention camp, internment camp that they just created out of nowhere in the middle of the Everglades, which again is the same tactics that they were using to create the Japanese internment 100%. Camps, putting these camps in random isolated rural fucking areas where it's like hot as fuck, gross as fuck, all types of animals and creatures in the wild, and they're just like, no, let's just put this internment camp here. A lot of the people that were in the internment camps were also getting pushed out to basically places where they were housing animals because they were like amidst creating, you know, the camps and shit like that. So it's just, it's wild what happens when you dive into the history and the connections that you see. And to me, it makes solidarity super fucking easy.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, you look anywhere in the history of America, in the history of whiteness, and it's some level of terrorism.
I am thinking about, bringing it to this moment and thinking about both your, like, maybe white supremacy hot take, how it's showing up for you, or how you see white supremacy showing up in day to day.
Yeah.
Is a question we like to ask ourselves and our guests, if you have an answer to that.
Ooh.
Word.
So this is how I'll respond to that. I think that it's interesting that people care about authoritarianism now when there's an impact on the U.S.
Interesting.
When we know that it's been on the rise in many other countries.
Talk about it.
That when folks in other countries are experiencing it, it didn't really matter. And so I think that's what I'm reckoning with right now. That's one thing I'm reckoning with. It's like, oh, now because you're starting to feel it in the context of this U.S. American dream that you've been living.
Right.
And so even as I think about how to build like global solidarity, right? Yes. I have had comrades in other countries like, yo, what could we actually like speak with folks who are organizing now? Yes. Like, how do we actually learn from folks who've actually dealt with authoritarian governments and states in other parts of the world? And I think I'm wrestling with welcoming folks who are being politicized for the first time, or like compared to maybe other things that have politicized like people. And then with this idea of how could we also politicize them with the analysis around how this is not new.
Right.
That this is actually, to your point, historical, intentional, literally has been happening since forever ago. Yeah. And so how do we balance that? Because it's like, I feel like, yes, you should join efforts and finally welcome.
Yeah.
And let's welcome you, but also ground you in some of this history so that you're clear that even when we move beyond this particular political moment, that you recognize that it's part of a broader story in history that is not new, and that for many of us or our people have experienced it, even outside of a U.S. context.
Well, and I really appreciate that, and it makes me think about, from a strategy perspective, what's his strategy to thwart authoritarianism globally that recognizes the like outside importance that the U.S. has played in terms of like shifting and setting the tone internationally, but doesn't have the U.S. as the central champion or like savior or what have you, because like so much of the story about the United States was like, we're the purveyors of democracy all around the world, right? Like we're supporting people moving democracy in these countries that are struggling with authoritarianism, blah, 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 blah. So like for so long, we were supposed to be the heroes of, the fight against authoritarianism, but we're actually not the heroes. So like, what does it mean to have a solidarity movement of countries that are maybe less authoritarian than the U.S. or other places, and like, we got to come in and rescue these hoes. Like, we got to come in and save the United States. So like, we're not the great saviors of it all, but that actually a solidarity movement looks like people from France, people from Denmark. I mean, I actually don't know the international organizing landscape kind of at all, but I would just say that like from a story and strategy perspective, like, let's flip this shit on the head that like we're not the great saviors. In fact, people need to save us. And like it doesn't, like, the reality is that the United States has been such a dominant force in the world for so long that what happens here has implications globally. But that could also mean that like if there is a strong enough international solidarity movement, that's like we have to go and help, like an international democracy movement that is able to like help us thwart authoritarianism here. That feels like a really interesting shift in power dynamic globally that I think could really right size what it means to like for the U.S. to be playing whatever role we aren't playing at this point.
What comes up for me when I hear you say that is whiteness still needs to recognize its place in a historical context, and that
Say that again.
That's gonna require it to shut the fuck up.
Yes.
Take a step back.
Yes.
Listen. And
Or actually put their bodies on the line in a different way.
Yes.
yeah.
Like I think in the context of spaces with other marginalized folks, people of color, yes.
I think that's a good. Okay, I think you might get it indicator. And I think when I look at my journey and experience through Black liberation, through this progressive movement, it has been in those moments that when I see white people putting their body on the line, whether it's through a direct action and being like, all right, we're going to be the first to get arrested if niggas is getting arrested, or whether it's going to like a power shift conference, or literally a power shift conference that I went to, and hearing white people be like, oh my gosh, talk to us about racism because our shit is fucked up. And like,
It's racist.
Like hold us accountable.
Our shit is racist.
Like
well,
literally in those moments, there was a shift in my brain, like, oh, maybe these white people actually get it.
Yes.
And I think that is a good indicator of like, okay, I think you're on a journey of trying to figure that shit out.
Okay.
Figure out the context of whiteness historically and white supremacy historically. Because also, you know, when we think about America, I feel like I have to force myself into that identity and conversation.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
yes, I am too American. But like, I genuinely don't feel that way because of how I'm treated in America.
Yeah.
Right.
And it also reminds me, which is a whole nother conversation, about my experience being Catholic.
Yeah.
I never actually felt like I remember being a kid in the Catholic Church being like,
We got to talk about the church next
I don't feel connected to any of this shit.
Yeah.
I don't like, y'all are using these words that make it seem as if I'm a part of this thing, but y'all niggas aren't even looking at me. Like, I don't feel none of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in this experience and in this conversation of like, well, what is it going to take for what is it going to take for America to recognize itself as the colonizer?
Yes.
It's going to take whiteness to take a step back as we also are holding it accountable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well said.
And I think a way that what's coming up for me as you're saying that too, Kevin, is like to not be activated because of individual interest, but actually to be activated and have a context for collective interest. I think that's maybe the shift that I'm desiring is like, okay, now you want to get involved, but it's because now your livelihood's on the line, or the cushy government job that you had for all this time has now been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, where were you at when
That was happening all over the
happening in other places, or when we were trying to demand a basic $15 in a union for people, or during the movement for Black Lives, or really any of the other things, right? And so I think that is the other thing that I would say. And then, you know, and this is the other thing I'll say, and maybe this, I don't know if it's necessarily a hot take, but I think I will assert this here, is I think people have tried to move past the who to blame for the elections. But I think one thing that I keep hearing is this desire to point blame at young men of color. And I will say that I think that it's important to name that, like, young men of color are also people that aren't being engaged. And that when I ask all of the organizations that allegedly represent or organize just people generally, but also say that my biggest question is, well, were you on the gaming platforms? Were you actually on the porn sites?
Yes.
Were you on any of these apps that I know that at least queer people are on?
Yes.
I'm like, did you have any Grindr ads? Did you have any Jacked ads? And they all look at me wild. But I'm like, I know that's where my people are
Where
at.
the audience
That's where the
is.
audience is at. And so I think I think that there's a agitation here. Like I've been like inviting an agitation around how do we actually like how do folks take a little bit more ownership of some of the role in which how we got here? Because I think it's just, I just want to like it's like that Spider-Man meme where everyone's pointing at each other, and it's like, okay, well, y'all can't be the leaders and get all the resource and also not be responsible for what happens.
Hello.
Right.
And so then you're pointing at communities and scapegoats, and it's like, well, you didn't actually meet them where they were at.
Right.
And then when we start pulling out the receipts, you get your feelings hurt.
Right.
So I would just, that would be the final thing I say is like, as now we are shifting obviously and trying to respond to the current moment, I have not been in any conversation where there has been real vulnerability and transparency around how we got here.
Yeah.
How we got here and why we're still not showing up to people that need to hear the messages.
Yeah.
Like, still not on a porn site. Still not on a Twitch stream, like, and I, it's not about doing it in a transactional way. It's literally like,
This is where the people at.
this is where the people are.
Yeah.
Go to where they're at.
When I first started working in digital, at one point I was doing an interview and they were asking me about like where I would, like a strategy question, and I was basically like, I would find motherfuckers on Craigslist because
Period.
that's where the people are at.
Hello.
At that time, it was like motherfuckers is on Craigslist.
Yes.
So if I'm looking for a certain group of people trying to do this particular thing, that's where we should be sliding into. And I remember that moment having this duality of like, I feel very confident in this answer, but also like, where does this answer sit in the system of white supremacy and the tradition of white supremacy?
Right.
Which is funny because like I tend to ask, well, what does white supremacy think about this? Mm-hmm. Because I know how I feel about it, but I'm trying to understand how does my thoughts in the context in the field of white supremacy. Where y'all at with this? Because I'm trying to understand it in its fullness. And speaking of white supremacy, one thing I want to ask you.
Speaking of white supremacy.
As we do on the show.
As we do on the show. What has been the most challenging thing that you feel like you have had to unlearn as you navigate your journey of unlearning white supremacy?
I will say that I also had to unlearn anti-blackness. I think while I know that I always had the genuine enough interest that as I understood the systems that I was socialized in, as I understood what it meant to operate in white supremacy, in capitalism, and as I learned more about the history, I gave more grace to myself. But if I'm going to be very vulnerable, like it was that I also there was that I needed to unlearn too. Mm-hmm. And so I think that is also why I try to balance this rigor, but also this level of grace when I talk to my people, because I'm like, all right, well, and that's kind of how I connect with them. I'm like, well, I also had similar sentiments or understandings before too.
Word.
And that I actually think and I think that invites a different openness with people, and why I tell people all the time that I'm like, the biggest ways that we could support and be a part of liberation movements is talking to our own people. Mm-hmm. And that our own people could mean our family members, could be our neighbors, could be the people that we go to school with or work with. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I would say is that like being able to say that publicly, but also be able to use that as a way to ground myself and to like, as I'm continuing to disrupt and try to challenge white supremacy. I think the other thing that I would say is because I'm also in relationship with a lot of Black people and a lot of other folks who are darker skinned than me, I'm reminded that white supremacy still is very prevalent. So like we will be out in spaces where I'm like, well, why do they keep looking at me, or why do they keep turning to me? Like literally there's a bunch of other people, and that even that in day to day that we still experience the manifestations of white supremacy. And so I have to also like remember that even outside of being in like home, like being with homies and comrades, that like I still have to, it's ongoing work.
Yeah.
And so that I have to be like, all right, well, why are you talking to to these, like to my friend this way? Why do you continue to only direct me versus literally there's a whole group of us here? Or like why do I have to be the one to hail this cab because they're and so I think for me that was a challenge in that, like, how do I act in the moment but also hold space and be in continue to be in relationship with folks, knowing that my proximity to whiteness in certain contexts is that I am more that I have more of it, and that sometimes is hard. No matter how much I care about solidarity, no matter how much I know about the history, or no matter how much work that I've done, that it continues to still be so prevalent in day to day. And so, balancing both, like trying to be a disruptor, but also like still being in community and in a way that is vulnerable and honest, but also doing my part to dismantle white supremacy.
I think that's really one of the most important parts of doing this work, is to recognize that, like, it's actually not external. I mean, it is external, but it's also really, really internal. Like, we have to unlearn anti-blackness. We, as black people, foundational or otherwise, we have to unlearn anti-blackness. We have to figure out how white supremacy is showing up in us on a day-to-day, and in a meta way out into the world. It's not a either or, it's a both and, all at the same time. And you can't do one if you're not doing the other. You can't be out in the world fighting to, overturn unjust laws or shift policy that's inequitable in your schools or what have you, if you don't also do that work inside yourself, in your own heart.